Hi again everybody. I don't know if you've watched the early video just done on making paper aeroplanes, these guys, but we're now going to make something along the same lines but slightly a bit more difficult to make, and that's throwing arrows. Some of the dads may remember doing these as kids. Simply a stick with a set of flights in, and with the use of a piece of string around the top, you can actually throw these things, again probably 50 yards, easily over tops of trees, that sort of thing. And again, they can be quite dangerous in the wrong hands. Youngsters need to be supervised with these, because it's advisable to put a nice sharp point on the end, and then when you do throw them a long distance, they'll stick very satisfyingly into the ground. So you can use them for targets and that sort of stuff, or just see who can throw them the furthest. So to make them, again, very, very simple. First of all, you need a stick. These sticks aren't particularly great, they're just what I had to hand. Ideally you want a nice straight stick. You know, if you can find a piece of willow or something like that. These are not going to be accurate. It's not like a arrow you need in a bow, so it hasn't got to be that straight, but straighter the better. I think we used to use privet and things like that. So essentially you want one in millimetres, 500 mil, something like that, about 2 foot or so, just over 2 feet, 2 and a bit, and about 10 mil. I mean, you can see what we're talking about. It's about the thickness of your finger. An arrow-shaped piece of wood, really. So we cut it to length. First thing we need to do is split down the top end for the flights to be to take the flights. If children are doing this, it might need a parent to watch this, because it's quite easy to cut a finger, I should think. But essentially, we're very carefully with a knife splitting. Can you see that? Splitting down the end to take the flights. These tend to have a tendency to suddenly go, and they can go through your fingers, so be really careful. And you don't want it to split out from the side either, which then you've got to find another stick. So very carefully easing it down. And we need to go down around about 150 mil, something like that. Oops, nearly there. Right. As you can see, that has started to split out. I will get away with that because we're going to take that in, but that's what can happen if you're not careful. So, having done that, we're now going to make the flights. It reaches over, unprepared. The flights, again, only crude, but they need to be, reasonably aerodynamic. You can see that. So we need to come in at about ½ an inch to allow some tape at the end, and draw a very crude line, if you can see that. Just hold that up for you. So you can see I've done a very crude line for like one half of the flight. We then draw another line, which is the thickness of the shaft, and then to make it symmetrical, the easiest way to do it is if we cut out the shape, and simply fold it in half. We can then draw around the shape. So we just simply drawing around that shape, and then cutting it out. Will give us a symmetrical shape. And then we need 2 of these, so we'll just put it back on the paper, draw around it, cut it out again. Like so. As you can probably tell, I've never done a workshop before. Not like this anyway. So we should now have 2 pieces of card for our flights. And all we do is slide them into the slot we made. And for this purpose, electrical tape is particularly good because you want something that's strong and is not going to disintegrate when it gets wet. Because these will last quite a time if you don't lose them, that is. Oops. You can tell I'm not an accomplished workshop presenter. The same at the bottom end as well. The flights are still quite loose in this position, so you can move them about to reposition them, etc., to get them more square. I'm just going to put a bit more tape on that top, so there you go. Did it particularly well. And then we simply bend these out to make it look like a traditional arrow. And as you can see, you certainly wouldn't put that in a bow. It wouldn't go in very much of a straight line, but for this purpose, it's more than adequate. It's just to try and keep the arrow travelling in a straight line. You can put a nice point on the end if you want the thing to stick in the ground, but again, you don't necessarily need to. To actually fire the thing through the air, you need a piece of string. The string itself doesn't want to be too heavy, but it doesn't want to be too light. This, what we call sugar string, is about right. So the first thing to do is to tie a knot at the end, and just keep building it up, because this knot will form a stop, as you'll see in a minute. So it's just tying over and over again, forming a crude knot at the end. And then simply, so what we do to throw the arrow is we place the knot at the top, bring the string alongside it, you can see that, so that we oops, start again. We have the knot against the stick, the string's brought over the top, and the knot holds it tight in position. We draw the string to the bottom of the bow and wrap it around our fingers a few times. So this is probably where we'll cut the string at this point. So wrapped around your hand, gripping the bottom of the arrow, and simply throw and release the arrow, but holding onto the string. And the string effectively acts as a lever or an extension of our arm, and it will propel the arrow, and it will go easily 50 yards, and so you'll get it over trees. But again, they can be quite dangerous. You need to know where they're going to land. Certainly don't send them into a crowd or whatever, particularly if they've got a point on, because they will stick in the ground. When we were kids, one of the lads managed to stick one in his brother's back. That was a very thin green garden cane, pointed, shaped to a real point. He managed to throw it straight into his brother's back, and it stuck about half an inch into the skin. So they can be quite dangerous, but in the right hands, they're great fun. And so one of the nice things is to see how far you can throw them. If you've got a good open field or a park where it's safe to do it, you get a few of these and just see how far they'll go. So keep safe and have a bit of fun with those. Thanks very much. Bye now.